My dad and I flew to Tucson, Arizona for the last week to drive this 2025 Audi A5 Sportback. Today we're going to go take it up through the mountains, enjoy some fun curvy roads, and talk about our experiences the last 7 days in this Audi A5. Hello everybody and welcome to Performance on Wheels. My name is Austin. My dad Todd and I, we make all types of different car videos on all types of different cars. Let's check out the 2025 Audi A5.
In 2025, the only motor that is available in the A5 Sportback is the 2-liter. The 2-liter that essentially has gone through numerous revisions, small tweaks over the years, but is ultimately the very similar motor. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad motor by any means. It's a motor that is a zippy, quick motor. It has obviously the amazing Quattro all-wheel drive, but it also delivers efficiency. We experienced on a road trip that we took this week 33 miles per gallon, and those were at speeds 70, 75-ish. So that is something that is a pro on the A5. When you're driving the A5 in your normal driving configurations, it is a very tame daily driver, with the exception of the kind of more aggressive sport tuned suspension. However, when you shift the dynamic mode, your transmission dynamic mode, you will see that RPM gauge shifts up probably a good 5,000 RPMs. That throttle response becomes very engaging, and you get that nice fake engine noise that comes into the cabin, which does actually add to the experience. We've had the opportunity to drive the A5 on numerous different types of roads. There's some pretty rough roads here in the Tucson, Arizona area, but there's also a lot of fun curvy roads. And what we have learned is that the sport suspension or sport tuned suspension is pretty darn firm. Now we have those low profile 19-inch wheels with the low profile tire wrapped around them, and you can feel just about every single bump, and you can hear just about every single bump on the inside, both from the suspension as well as some rattles around the interior here. It is fun when you start pushing this car, and you have to push it substantially. And what I mean by that is it is a very capable platform. So you can drive this car pretty aggressively, and I would say it doesn't necessarily become enjoyable until you are driving it really aggressively, because it is a very capable platform, and there are a lot of things about this platform that are very muted in a daily driving standpoint. The steering feel is pretty darn numb until you are really pushing the car. The suspension is pretty darn firm, which can be annoying until you're really pushing the car. Let's talk about just the overall interior of the A5. Now, this is starting to feel like a rather old place to be. You can look back at a 2019 model as an example, and there are very, very few differences that you will find on the interior. Now, just talking about the overall fit, finish, and just how you feel in here, one thing I want to bring up, and maybe you'll disagree with this, but when I'm in a car, especially one that is more on the sport side of things, I like to feel like I am sitting inside of the car and not on top of the car. And what I mean by that is, in the A5, I have the seat down as far as it'll go, and being 6 feet tall, there's not much room above me on my head, but also like my body, I feel like I'm like outside of the window. Now that might be a slightly dramatic statement, but it's just the feeling I get from behind the wheel. On the other side of things, what that does is it does create tremendous visibility in all directions around you. Now remember, we are talking about the lowest trim you can get here in the A5, essentially the base under $50,000, around $47,000 to be exact. But the seat quality isn't awesome. Now it looks good. It does feel good in the front seat. When we get to the back seat, we'll see if our opinion differs from that. But behind the wheel overall, like the steering wheel, it feels good in the hands. The controls, everything is simple like, there's really no point in talking about it because it's the exact same Audi that it's been for many, many years. And now in 2026, if we get what the Europeans are getting, this might be a completely different conversation. But for now, in this video, in 2025, in a brand new Audi, I'm simply very underwhelmed. We started driving this car with 15 miles on it. It now has over 600 miles on it. And some things that are interesting are if you turn the radio off and you just listen to the car and what it's doing, you will notice that you will have door rattles from every single door. The driver door in particular, because that's the one that is right next to my ear, it's very obvious. Like, it is rattling, it is loud, it is not like a faint noise, which is very surprising when you talk about quality. Besides the door rattle, there are some design elements that I find interesting here in 2025. And again, these aren't necessarily new, but it's 2025 and this is what we are still producing for a brand new car. The start button, as an example, if I were to have an American sized drink, and granted this is not an American car, in my cup holder, I could not reach my start button with a clear line. Also, just the general size of the cup holders and the position of them. If I have the right size cup or a big enough cup, I am either not going to be able to get it into the cup holder, or B, getting it out without first hitting a button on the dashboard could be a challenge.
On both the front and rear, the Audi A5 actually has frameless windows, which I find to be kind of fun, and the door handles actually open upwards, which is something that I wasn't necessarily expecting when I get in. Those frameless windows, however, they kind of have some compromises. When you actually roll the window all the way down in the back, that's as far as it goes down. I've never seen a vehicle that's rear window goes down that little. So when you actually shut the door in here, it feels like it's only about halfway, which is kind of interesting. Now notice how cramped I am sitting in here right now. I'll take my hat off. I'm 5'11", and my head is basically touching the ceiling of this vehicle. So if I get out, you really have to be cautious not to hit anything. There is quite the weird neck position you have to do to get in here without hitting anything. Now the A5, granted this isn't the S5 or the RS5, it's still a pretty stiff vehicle when it comes to the suspension. So when we're going over some of the bumpier roads here in Tucson, every single bump I'm hitting my head on the roof of this car, and it's just non-stop, just constantly whacking my head on the roof. And I do typically get car sick in vehicles. However, in the A5 here particularly, because this window goes down so little, and because there's actually very little visibility from me being in the back seat because my eyes are like above the window, I have gotten very car sick in this car over the last week sitting in the back seat. However, one thing that's very surprising that you don't see very often in a car in this class is tri-zone climate control, which I think is pretty cool. We're able to control the climate and have vents here for the second row, as well as dual zone for the front two passengers, so I find that to be quite awesome. Also, the rear cup holders are very surprising. They're very good for being in the second row, especially in a sedan of this size. They can really hold drinks in over some aggressive cornering or bumps. I want to go ahead and talk about tech really quick here. Behind the wheel of the Audi, I really find this to be the sweet spot when it comes to overall interior screens. It's not too overbearing, the screen right on the middle of the dash. It looks great. It looks elegant. However, at the same time, it does kind of look like it's just placed there. It kind of just depends on your personal opinion. I think it looks nice. Some people think it looks like an iPad on your dash. The digital dash looks good. It's got very nice black tones, so it's very, very deep. A great display that makes it look quite elegant. Overall, I am thoroughly disappointed with a few things, however, one of them being the lack of USB Type-Cs. We have a USB-A up front, two USB-As in back, only one Type-C under kind of the center armrest here, which I think is a little dated in my opinion. I think we need a few more chargers, and Type-Cs are definitely the way that everything is going. So it's a little bit dated that we have so many A's inside of this car. Also, when we come to C's and A's and talking about USBs, you need to use those USBs to use Android Auto and Apple CarPlay because it does not support wireless, which is just crazy to me on a vehicle of this scale or level that it's plug-in only. Now, plug-in only is great if you want to charge your phone, but sometimes it's nice to just hop in here and use wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. I love that we have physical climate control buttons. They're easy to use. They're very simple. We do have physical heated seat buttons, physical heated steering wheel, which is standard on all A5s, by the way. Very, very convenient there. And this display here, it's good. It's nothing crazy. It's overall pretty easy to use. But I do want to bring up one thing. When you start this car, there's these weird red lights that turn on, which would look really nice as ambient lighting. However, after digging through Reddit, looking in some forums online, nobody knows what the heck these red lights are. You would think they're ambient lighting. No, there's no way of turning them on through the screen. You would think, well, then they got to turn on when you open the door on like the side of a highway for an emergency thing, right? No, they don't turn on. We cannot get these red lights to turn on digging through every single setting in this car. I have no idea what they're for, so I'd be very curious what you guys think down in the comments below. There's just these weird red lights that come on. However, driving this vehicle at night, it is quite elegant. We have some nice white lights all throughout the interior. You have the availability to change the brightness inside of the screen there. And also just the dimness of the screens does make it a pleasant drive at night, but you have no availability to change the color of that white light. So in that sense, it makes it not as appealing as some of the other competitors such as Kia, Hyundai, Mercedes, for example. All of those vehicles have been doing color changing ambient lights for quite some time now, and the fact that we're again in an A5 on a $50,000 vehicle and don't have that, it's kind of disappointing.
Wrapping up the inside of the A5, we obviously have to talk about the trunk. We're talking about a Sportback model, so obviously we have that sloped roof line that integrates the interior with the trunk. This is interesting because I would have thought there was more room. However, when we had all of our luggage in here for the trip, we couldn't have gotten a single additional item into the trunk. So 4 adults and 3 suitcases is all the A5 could handle. Now, like most brands, the number means a bigger car, where in Audi, the A5 Sportback is the exact same size as an A4 sedan. Now you do get some different design cues, and talking about design cues, this is a sharp looking car. Like with the tail lights and the way that they blink and they segment, like that's fun and everything. There are some good body lines down the side of the car that I do appreciate. The biggest one being right over the rear wheel. And the reason I mention that is something that stands out from behind the driver's seat. It makes it look like you have a big rear wheel well or something like that. That design line goes all the way down the car. That's really what separates the top from the bottom of the car. It looks good. It is a sharp looking car, even on the bottom trim 19-inch wheels. This is a good looking car.
That sweeping line carries all the way around to the front of the hood where it goes into this angular piece, and that kind of is that whole body line. It finishes off that whole hood portion, and I have to admit, I find this car to be absolutely stunning, beautiful, aggressive. I really like the look of this car front on. I always manage to look at one of these going down the road. They are beautiful cars. They did a great job designing these from the front, the side, the back. There is no angle from this car that I really don't like on the exterior, and I think that's saying something. That's quite impressive that they did such a good job with the design of this car and how, quite honestly, high-end it looks at even a base model trim like the version that we are going at here. But the issue with this car is that it just feels like a dud year. Like 2019, you can buy one of these used now, right? They're already depreciated a significant amount. I just am struggling to wrap my mind around the fact that why you'd want to purchase one of these new. There's not enough changes on the interior or the exterior to make it, I don't know, stick out over the upcoming 26. Like, why would you buy one of these when the 19 is available at so much lower of a cost now? We're not really the channel to be negative Nellies. However, I feel like we have been recently because, I mean, we drove the Silverado EV, which quite honestly, we didn't have a lot of positive things to say because of the price point that it was at. And now hopping into the Audi A5, I mean, I've always looked at these cars and found them to be so beautiful. I hate to be a negative Nelly or say something poor about a vehicle, but I just want to be honest with the viewers here. I don't fully think that this would be a purchase that I would suggest or recommend going through with.
You already kind of hit on it, but like, I find myself with every new car we're driving, whether it's EV or combustion, like, knowing that driving can be fun and exciting, I find myself wanting something that's older versus something that's newer. The only thing that a newer car has, which you can't even say that about the A5 we're sitting in, is like better technology. Like better technology, how it communicates with your phone, better technology with your navigation, the different offerings. But outside of that, like the driving experience is like, they're just bland. And that's what I think you and I both really enjoy. So I don't think we necessarily want to be negative, but we just have that viewpoint of like, cars were really good 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's like, they're just kind of, even the automakers are like, we're being told to make EVs and no one wants to buy these cars that we're being told to make. So it's just an interesting spot in the industry right now.
I would fully agree, and this car is beautiful on the outside, and I would just, being gearheads like us, I'd rather buy a used S5 for the same price than purchase one of these brand new here in 2025. I feel like this is a dud year. I wouldn't recommend going through with it. And if you need to have a new car, quite honestly, Audi's lead designer actually went over to the Hyundai Kia brand, and I really think they're making some great cars right now, and they're even fun to drive. Granted, if you're looking for something all-wheel drive, they're not as quick as the A5 that we're checking out, but if you're interested in a front-wheel drive offering and looking for a better driving experience and better tech, and quite honestly, a more high-quality interior, look at something like the Hyundai Sonata GT or the Kia K5 GT line. Both of those vehicles are more fun to drive, in my opinion. They have better technology. They come with a dual clutch transmission with it, which makes them a little bit more engaging feeling while driving. And the tech is significantly better, with also kind of a better interior layout and higher quality seats at a price point around $15,000 less than this Audi.
Thank you so much for tuning into the video today on Performance on Wheels, as we checked out the 2025 Audi A5 Sportback.
Thank you guys so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.